Hello. Welcome to another.
Hello.
Were you going Pulp Fiction on us there for a second?
Yes. Is that why all the kids today do the peace sign? Is just their callback to Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, I'm sure that's it. 100%. 100%. When you see that little grade schooler and they do this when they get their picture taken, it's calling back to Pulp Fiction.
You learned it here first.
100%.
Welcome to Age of Geek, the podcast. We're stoked to be here tonight to talk about a fantastic show, Ted Lasso.
Beautiful masterpiece.
It's so good.
I feel like our watermark doesn't work very well with this background, Colin.
No,
as you changed it from white to black, I think.
I did that.
Was it you, Marley?
Yeah, because the white, I was like, I need to change it to the other one. I was like, wait, no, it's the yellow.
No, it's
that's
the yellow
problem.
that's blending in.
Yeah.
Just hating.
It's fine.
I was thinking
we could just take it off.
I did the Greyhound background, but we could have done the Believe in the background, but all of our faces would be covering the words.
But I think the Believe sign is yellow too, so it still would be the same issue.
It is.
Yellow.
No. I could just do Jason Sudeikis' face right up and everything.
That would be okay too.
Yeah, Ted Lasso series finale ended last week.
Yeah, only 3 seasons. It's kind of hard to believe. Me and Steph, we were actually just talking to our friend Lindsay about it yesterday, and we're like, yeah, we're recording the episode on Ted Lasso, and she's like, oh, I'll watch it eventually when it's all out, and we're like, it is all out, and she's like, well, yeah, all the first 3 seasons, and we're like, no.
She's like, yeah, when all the seasons are out, then I'll get to it. We're like, now
it's out.
Do it.
Now's your time.
You need to watch it now.
Yeah. It's a rare thing. It's a successful show. They could do, I think the demand is there to keep doing more seasons, but they said from the very beginning, we had a story and we finished that story and that's it. And I'm good with how it ended. So yeah. I'm okay with that. I think there will be some spinoffs, but we'll see.
Yeah, we definitely will be talking about the ending and have spoilers. So if you have not finished, go and do so now. Then return to us. We'll wait.
Well, no, we don't have to. They'll just pause us, Steph, and come back when they're done. So we don't actually have to
forever.
Wait.
Yeah, we're not waiting. Well, and I feel like with Brett Goldstein, he also has a pretty successful show on the side too with Shrinking, and so you can see that he's still and there's other people involved too. It's not just him, but they're still making some really good content and stuff. So I feel like they're just getting going. So yeah, they're definitely gonna be some spin-offs or even some other new shows like Shrinking that we get just these fun, unique shows. Oh my gosh, there's Roy Kent's face.
Hannah Waddington, who plays Rebecca, has said in a couple interviews that she would play Rebecca as long as she could. If they do a spinoff, she would love to be a part of it. So they might be doing some spinoffs. I've seen the idea of doing a Zava spinoff, which I think could be hysterical.
Zava
is the perfect example of a character that should be obnoxious and annoying, but they use him just enough that he doesn't get to go over the line.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was kind of in and out so quickly though that I was just starting to actually like him because I was super annoyed with him in the beginning. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey, I actually like him. And then they got rid of him. I'm like, no.
But then they got that big ass avocado.
Oh my God.
That was awesome.
Freaking huge. I would
Holy
love to get into that
guacamole.
thing. Jeez.
When was first season of Ted Lasso released?
2020.
2020. So it was definitely COVID content.
Yeah, it was. So I think it was completed and everything before COVID hit, and then Apple released it. And while I don't think anybody would say, hey, let's be grateful for COVID, it was awesome. The timing worked out well for Ted Lasso because it came out right when we didn't really have any place to go. And so people were more likely to pick up something. because really Apple Plus at that point wasn't a huge streaming service. I mean, they were giving it away for free with every Apple product that you bought. I think I had 4 memberships at one point or another based on like replacing phones for my kids and whatnot. But so people weren't watching a ton of it. And so when this came out, because of when it came out, I think it really helped to kind of boost it along with the quality. But I mean, there had to be a reason why people would buy in the first place. And I think that contributed.
Well, let me ask the panel really quick. Did you guys start Ted Lasso in 2020, like when it first came out, or did you come to it later? Because I was very much a late addition to the Ted Lasso, the Lasso way, as it were. I didn't come into it until, 3 months ago, I believe.
Oh wow!
No.
So and I'm not one who's a binge watcher, so I only watch an episode or 2 a night over, it's like not every night even, but I was able to get the more compressed story all at once, so to speak, as opposed to 2020, 2021, the skip year, and then this year.
Robert, real quick, whose legs are floating above your head?
There are no legs above my head. Dark Phoenix.
Oh,
I was like trying to look down so I could, but that's not how. There we
That's
go.
not how video works.
That's not how video works.
No.
Well, and to answer your question, Robert, so I came into it after the whole, like, the first season was out. And but initially when I heard about the show, because like it was 2020 and it was very like, there was like not a whole lot to do, and there's still some new shows being released, and I heard about this Ted Lasso, and it was a soccer show, and I'm not a fan of soccer, I'll be honest. Like pro soccer, I'm like, if someone gave me tickets to a match, sure, I'd maybe like go see it, but I'm not gonna go on my own. And I played soccer when I was a kid too, and I still don't really like it. But
I think you have to by law play soccer as a child in Utah. So
it's true. And but I heard it. I feel like this show was very much like a word of mouth kind of show, because all of a sudden people started watching it and they're like, hold on a second, this show is amazing. It's funny. It's wholesome. It's not what you think at all. And that's kind of how it happened for me. I had some friends that I was staying with, and they're like, "Oh, we should watch Ted Lasso. We have all the first season." And I'm like, "Okay." And we binged it during my whole time I was staying with them. Like, yeah, we binged it hard because it was, and it was, and second season, we were excited for that one to come out too and everything. So yeah, we just stuck with it. So yeah, it was sometime in 2020, I think.
Marley's the one who told me about it, so we watched it after.
So definitely word of mouth there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had seen people starting to talk about it like online, and so I tried a couple of episodes, and it took me a little bit longer to get on board with it because of the language and some of the content in it. I was like, I don't typically watch shows with a lot of that in it, and so it was out of character for me. But then there was so much in it that was good. I'm like, I can't ignore it. So I probably really full on watched it right before the second season came out. I watched the first season all the way through in preparation for that one coming out.
Yeah, this is definitely a show I describe as like effing wholesome, because it did catch a lot of people that I don't think typically watch things with language in it like this.
Mm-hmm.
But the content is greater than the language that bothers some people. And it is just so wholesome, even while Roy Kent is effing this and effing that. So
definitely.
He's just to be clear, he's saying effing this and effing that. He's not actually going around and effing.
Well, he's here and he's there and he's everywhere. So
Roy Kent. Well, and like that's the thing too, is I like, because I don't swear all that much on personally, but like I don't mind some swears here and there, but like I feel like with this show they were so well timed. Like I feel like the script was just so clever and witty that like almost any time there was like an F word or anything like that, it was funny. It was like it was for comedy, and so I feel like that really helped with it as well.
But it wasn't just for comedy. I think that it was situationally and for the characters who were dropping F-bombs where they did. it was believable that they would do it in that moment.
Oh
for
yeah,
those
no,
reasons.
for sure.
So
For
it was
sure.
more conversational as opposed to done just for a good laugh, so to speak.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
and
that's true.
I think it's also cultural. I think that like that language isn't seen as such as bad as it is in the US.
If you've ever watched a Gordon Ramsay anything besides
Right.
Master Chef
Yep.
Junior, where he doesn't do it in front of the kid, but
Master
anything
Chef
else like
Junior.
Kitchen Nightmares or whatever, you can. I mean, I think that is a very cultural thing for certain parts of the UK.
And
Sure.
it's,
I mean,
and it's
or outside of
you
Utah.
can see that in
yeah.
That's also true.
in,
Thank you,
in
Robert.
Ted as well, right? Like Ted is this very, very initially reserved, kind of calculated on what he's going to say, and doesn't normally say those kind of things until the final season.
But I think that even with Ted, I mean, Ted is very much Ted falls into what I remember of living in the Midwest, of just a lot of people. And when he did finally have that conversation with his mother, and it was just dropping them every other sentence, it was like, okay. And I think that Ted maintained kind of like his wholesome status throughout, and it wasn't that he wasn't calculating later. He was, however, a lot less restrained, and even liberated in being able to be open about how he felt with things, which he bottled so much up the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, that conversation with his mom was one of my favorite conversations, and I have made a list in my head of. Anyway, a similar conversation for. Anyway, we can move forward. Sorry.
Well, I actually feel like that's a really common theme in pop culture right now, is like breaking generational trauma, and that requires having tough conversations with parents that sometimes we would rather just skirt it under the rug. And so, yeah, I think that was a really important and cool episode. I really like the exposition of the seasons, because the first season is like all set up, right? It's all wholesome. We love it. We're getting the characters' backstories. The second season is Ted going through mental health crises, a little more character development amongst other people and the team. And then third season is like a ton of team camaraderie together, and Ted like finally like doing the work, getting to the conclusion. And so it really is just this great story and moves well. But the second and third season are quite different from the first season, because you go from that happy-go-lucky to like, hey, actually, let's talk about some real stuff now.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with shows like this that are going to use kind of the sitcom format but still want to break through to some kind of tougher issues, you see that pretty regularly. Like the first season is played much safer, like let's make this more of a typical kind of sitcom. I mean, the first couple of episodes especially, you really feel like, okay, this is like if Michael Scott were given a Premier League soccer team. Not quite to that level, but
I'm not an off.
Yeah, you said the wrong.
I'm not an Office fan. Michael Scott gives me the ick.
Okay, so if Leslie Knope were given a Premier League soccer, okay,
I like that.
Okay, but then with the second season, because they're like, okay, people are bought into these characters now. Now we can really kind of push the envelope a little bit more, and then they push it even further in the third season. And I love that. I love when you can say, hey, we're going to break genre boundaries, we're going to break norms, and we're going to kind of put the art that we want to put out there. Especially, like, you guys know where Ted Lasso came from? I mean, not Kansas.
I didn't. Had to look it up, and it was fascinating that it was a NBC Sports creation.
Like 10 years ago, NBC had gotten the rights to air Premier League football, soccer here in the United States, and to promote it, they put an ad campaign together with this character that Jason Sudeikis and the actor who plays Beard had kind of created. Was what if a football coach from America were hired to be a soccer coach in the Premier League, to kind of be that, hey, let's introduce them to some terms people aren't familiar with, whatever. And it was all comedy. It was all like Saturday Night Live level kind of sketch comedy That's where Ted Lasso, and that was Ted
Oh.
Lasso, and that's where the character came from. And then to turn it into what this has become is pretty amazing.
And there was an end credit and for every episode, characters from NBC Sports, which is what made me look it up in the first place.
Did Jason Sudeikis start off on SNL?
He did.
Okay. And
What
then
Jake said.
did Beard start off on SNL? No.
Yeah, I've not seen him in anything before this.
Me either.
And the only thing I'd seen Brett Goldstein in before this was as Hercules in at the very end of
Oh.
Love and Thunder.
Oh,
Well,
Yeah.
well, but
we started singing Roy Kent
When we saw that, we're like,
when we saw that.
Roy Kent!
Yeah.
Roy Kent!
well,
Yeah,
Brett, that's because he's a writer. He's not an actor,
yeah.
and he wasn't going to play this part. But they were looking for who was going to play Roy Kent, and he thought, I think I can do it, and submitted a video of him doing the character, sent it to the producers and everybody, and said, look, if this is garbage, if this is rubbish, just disregard
it
it,
didn't
never
happen.
talk about it, pretend it never happened. But this is my idea for it. And then they said, hey, we're going to stop looking. You're Roy Kent. So he that's why he hasn't really been in anything before this, because he was a writer.
Well,
Yeah.
and he loves the Muppets. And
Yes.
that's just one of my favorite things in the world. And his skits on Sesame Street with Oscar. And I love
So
Sesame
good.
Street. It's one of my favorite shows. And so yeah, his skits with Oscar are just so wonderful because they have the same energy.
Well, and like I feel like Roy Kent's character, I mean, obviously like in the beginning, you're kind of meant to like not really be sure about him because he's just like kind of this gruff, rude guy who swears a lot and all of that. But like I feel like over the seasons, and I feel like it was pretty quickly too for me, he became like one of the most beloved characters throughout all 3 seasons, even though he softened up a little bit here and there, and we definitely got to know him a little bit more. And especially when, you know, he opened up a little bit more when he was in the relationship with Keeley. And so that was like, it was just really nice to see, like, because obviously, yes, this show is about Ted Lasso. It's the name of the show. But like, I feel like it became a show about all the other characters too.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is the name of the show, but when we and maybe we're jumping ahead here, but when we get to the end, and his one note that he had for Trent Crimm was, my one suggestion, change the title of the book. It was never about me. And I felt like that applies a lot to the show too. Like this, even though he is the main character, I agree, Marley. We see the characters all around him growing, and we're invested in each of them. And it really is about this culture and this community that's built with this this team.
But I think that it both wasn't about Ted and was in to counter his statement. Not just the growth that we saw in everybody, but the growth that we saw in everybody because of his influence on them and his ability to break down a lot of walls, even among players on the team and the staff and the management, and be able to get them to come outside of their shells and their boxes to be able to relate to each other even.
Yeah, it's that unconventional thinking and ideas that just get put out there that sometimes can have the hugest impact. You know, it's not just, you know, here's how we're doing it. This is how we've always done it. We're going to stick to it, right? It's okay, let's look at this differently, because obviously I'm not a soccer guy, right? But, you know, these are the things that I've seen in my life and things that I've dealt with and things that I'm still dealing with that can help impact and change others around me.
Yeah. And I think that's what he excels at, right? Is the people piece and building people. I love in the first season when Trent Crimm's interviewing him and he says, you know, I'm not really as concerned about wins and losses. And then later in the conversation, later in the night, he says, I'm going to say this again so that you know it wasn't a mistake when I said it before. I don't care about wins and losses. I'm here to help each of these young men become the best versions of themselves. And like, that's that's why he felt like he could do it. Like, it was a crazy idea. Are we going to go coach football in England? Like, it's crazy. But he knew he could do it because he knew he could build the team, and he understood the people piece, I think.
Well, and that's such a quintessential like characteristic of a good sports movie too. It's not always necessarily about being the best and winning, but when you start to build people up as more than just sports players,
Athletes,
sports balls players,
sports skitball.
But when you start to build someone up and create community and create oneness on a team, you see the improvement of the team overall.
And it doesn't just apply to sports, though. I mean, because I think that just as a manager,
hey, we're just talking about sports in this episode, so
sorry,
I give you permission, Robert. Please continue.
No, speaking, from a management standpoint, he also showed something that a lot of people don't understand about management. Sometimes managing isn't knowing everything about every piece of the puzzle below you, but it's finding the people that can do the job best and coordinating their efforts to make the overall output the best it can be. And Ted did that. And he didn't just do it downstream. He did it upstream as well with Rebecca, and won her over because her whole gig at the beginning was just like, I just want to run this team into the ground to upset my ex-husband, and then made her, as he put it on the wall in the locker room, believe, and then want to have something that was not just something that Rupert cared about and her destroying it for that sake, but something that she cared about and wanted to have thrive.
So when you're saying managing, do you mean coaching but British?
No, I actually mean management.
Like in work, if you're a manager, if you lead people in any capacity, there's a lot of lessons from Ted Lasso.
There's a ton of lessons in here.
Yep.
So did you guys recognize that Hannah Waddington is the shame woman from Game of Thrones?
I knew that.
I didn't know it, and then I'm like, oh my god!
I know, not in the beginning. Yeah, it definitely. I think you pointed it out to me, Steph. I was like, wait, what?
I would have had to watch Game of Thrones to have gotten that right.
Okay, yeah, probably.
Yep. It happens in a later season, so yeah.
Or read the internet, Robert. That's where I learned about it.
Do you even pop culture?
What is this internet?
Well, and another funny crossover connection too that I found out just this week. And again, Steph over there pointed it out to me. So I, like, for the first time I'm finally sitting down to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And which I'm loving it, by the way. It's great. And Giles, if you guys know who that is, he's the librarian. He's played by the same actor who's Rupert Mannion in Ted Lasso, but he's a lot younger.
He's such a D-bag as Rupert.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm not convinced he wasn't as Giles either. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's fair. Sometimes.
Yeah, he's a little,
maybe not to the same extent that Rupert was.
He's crotchety. Buffy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, but as I've been watching Buffy, and I just, like, every time Giles is on screen and he's talking, I'm just like studying him to be like, Rupert.
He's also in an episode of Doctor Who where he plays a principal of a school or a headmaster of a school, and he is also a vampire. Speaking of irony.
Vampires. Okay.
Which episode was this? Which doctor was it?
It was the 10th Doctor. It's the one where he meets Sarah Jane again, and she's investigating the school as well.
And if you play Fall Guy, one of the costumes you can get right now is Doctor Who.
There you go.
Yeah.
I haven't played Fall Guys in forever.
Yeah.
It's a fun one, though.
We play it with our daughter.
Sure. So it's just like, unfortunately, I do.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, the side characters are so good in this. And again, to maybe jump forward a little bit, the biggest twist of the entire show is that we actually love Jamie Tart at the end.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was not something I ever expected.
My heart.
I like how they ended it with Keeley and Jamie and Roy, but also part of me was like, throuple? Maybe.
As I watched that episode and they were telling her, like, we've been fighting now you have to decide which one of us. I thought Steph's going to watch this and say they should be all three of them together. Like, I just knew that's where Steph was going to go with it.
I mean, I'll be honest, I thought the same thing. I was like,
Yeah.
maybe this could work.
I'm
all
not here to. I'm
three.
here to.
I mean, I'm not.
I mean, they've been on Jamie's wall for a real long time.
Oh my
That is true.
Yeah, both of them. That was
Yep.
fun.
I loved that episode. That was
Well,
like a fun little glimpse into his life too, Jamie's.
Jamie's an interesting character to me just because we see this conceited, arrogant, not very nice guy at the very beginning. And then as we get to see a little bit glimpses of his backstory, like how his father treated him and like just dresses him down in the locker room. And like those moments where you kind of start to understand why Jamie is the way he is. And those are some of the moments too that like breaks the wall down between him and Roy. Because in that moment at the end of season 2, I think, where he is it season 2 at the very end where they lose to Man City and his father's in there yelling at him, and then Coach Beard takes his father out after Jamie punches him, and then Roy just comes over and gives Jamie a hug. Like those are the moments, like those are the quiet little moments that we see that relationship developing, but we see that throughout with all of the characters, I think. And I don't know. I enjoy Jamie's evolution and change and growth. And in this season, I loved seeing him step up as, this is my team. Like, I'm the leader of this team, and go through that transformation instead of I'm the best player on the team. I'm the leader on the team.
Until he wasn't, because, Zava.
Yeah, then there was Zava.
Oh, Zava.
And then having to play second fiddle, to Zava. And then having to step up again after that. I thought that the humility that he showed and going to Roy and saying, coach me, make me a better player. And then the two of them having that relationship outside of the regular team dynamic was interesting to watch as well.
The change between Jamie Tart and Sam Obasanya, it was one of my favorite, most wholesome. I love the it's in the 3rd season when McAdoo is like, I can't be captain right now, and he gives it to Sam, and Jamie's like, you want me to take that? And Sam flips him off, which is kind of off character for Sam, but it shows how they banter together. It just made my heart happy.
Well, and
I also show love by flipping people off. So
as you should.
It's true, she does. But also one of my most favorite, but it was just kind of an interesting episode too, was that episode where they were in Amsterdam. And you kind of got these 4 different, I don't know, all these different stories of everybody and how they chose to spend their, their evening there in Amsterdam. And I freaking loved Jamie and Roy's little adventure on the bicycles. And even Jamie, helping Roy learn how to ride a bike. And they're like, windmills, we gotta go find the windmills. And I feel like that whole, I could have gotten a whole episode of that friendship, that hangout, and just forget all the other stuff. I was like, I just need more of this.
Okay, but Amsterdam brings up a question I have for y'all. Did we ship Ted and Rebecca?
I wanted it to happen. I'll be honest.
I always did.
I always did too. I really wanted it to happen. Even in the end, when she was saying goodbye to him at the airport, I was like, are they gonna kiss? Is it gonna happen? I was freaking out.
Now, I thought that I had that same question during the airport scene, but it was the only time I really was like, I take that back, except for the very beginning of the finale where Ted walks out in his pajamas and his beard walks out. I'm just kind of like, what happened here?
Oh, Beard.
Yes, they did that on purpose.
Oh, they totally did.
Absolutely.
It was brilliant.
Yes,
it was brilliant.
It was one of those, well, we've gotten everybody completely off guard now, and go. And
I think I turned to Blake and I'm like, they didn't show us this? And then
that poor cleaner just walking in thinking, what kind of orgy just happened?
Well, Jane and Beard running up to the room as they're like, don't
go in there.
That was probably one of the best pranks that the showrunners did. That, and when they rickrolled us at Rebecca's father's funeral. That was awesome as
Oh,
well.
they literally rickrolled us. Yes. Yes, they did.
One of my favorite callbacks too was the first season. Ted is teaching Jamie like the pick me, do it to me, and then they do that in the last episode as well. And I
forgot about that.
There's fun callbacks. But also with the whole Ted and Rebecca thing. So she's looking for the green matchbook the whole time. There is one episode in third season where Ted pulls stuff out of his pocket and has a green matchbook. So
that was the moment in the season where I thought maybe they're going to go there, because he does just nonchalantly pull it out. And like, if you're not noticing, you could have totally missed it. And he puts it on the table. I'm like, dude, he's still got the green matchbook. Are they going to go there? And honestly, the whole, what was it? Shining armor or whatever. I was like, I could see Ted making that mistake and fumbling over his words. So that was the moment where I thought they would go there. After Ted's mom visits, I'm like, no, they're not going to. He's got to go home. That's where this character has to go. And I don't think Rebecca's going to go with him.
No.
As much as I wanted it to happen, I was very happy with how they ended it.
Yeah.
And platonic friendship is very important as well.
I was kind of working while watching the last episode, but did Ted's ex-wife's boyfriend ever get like smacked for knocking the game?
No.
Like,
the worst he got was a very dirty look from both Henry and Michelle, and then he got relegated to the corner of the room.
Yeah. That was one thing. I was very satisfied with the ending, but there were things like that didn't really get tied up. Like, somebody asked me, so is Ted back together with Michelle? I'm like, I don't think they are. I think Ted has moved forward from that, and I don't think he needs to go back. Michelle is his ex-wife.
But it is interesting because the only home he has to go back to is the home that Michelle and Henry live in.
Yeah, because they were still married when he left.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean they get back together. But
but it was weird when he gets out of the cab and he goes
and then doing
into
the whole
house.
D-bag boyfriend thing. You can see why people might think that they get back together. But no, they didn't tie those ribbons.
In my head, they're not back together, and Ted has moved on and can do better. Because I don't like Michelle, honestly. She left Ted, and she left him for a Jacob, which is normally an upgrade, but in this case, it was not. Because he was not great either.
So many character ratings that put Michelle as the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
And like it was mainly because of his personality, like his optimism. She couldn't handle the always optimistic point of view, and so they would get back together and it would just drive her nuts again.
Yeah, I think though so this is hard. I don't like Michelle. And I don't want him back together with her. I don't think they work together. But I think she had a valid point with his optimism, because I think before he starts meeting with Dr.
Sharon Fieldstone.
Yes, Dr. Sharon, and starts really kind of coming to grips with his, past, his trauma, everything that goes along with that. I think, and in that moment when he's yelling at his mom too, one of the FUs to his mom is an FU for making me feel like I had to pretend everything was okay. And that's been his personality. I think that's where that positivity comes from, that is so over the top, because I think in a marriage, there was never a time when he was down or wasn't really opening up and sharing those feelings and emotions with Michelle. I don't know. Maybe that's too deep, but I just...
Well, now that he's emotionally available, who knows? And in my head, I didn't care one way or the other. I was curious, like, did they get back together? But even if they didn't, either way for me, it would have worked. But I was open to it going either direction. I was just happy to see him back with Henry and the look on his face of having his dad back home.
Well, again,
who knows? Maybe Sassy will go and visit him.
No, because Ted's a hot mess.
No. I didn't like Sassy.
No.
It's going to be where she told what's his face that he was horrible, and I'm just like, yes,
every time. But no. This is what's going to happen, because Rebecca mentioned, I want to travel the world. And I know she's staying with the team, but she did mention that she wanted to travel more, and they're in the off season now. So maybe she comes to Kansas.
But the Dutch guy. She's got the Dutch pilot guy.
And his daughter.
She's got her pilot guy now.
She could still go visit Ted.
No, the pilot guy is
Not
wonderful.
for romantic
she
reasons.
deserves him.
No,
It's
not
gonna
for
work out.
not
He's
just
not
for
a serial
romantic, but like no, just to like go visit and like as a friend. But she could bring the pilot guy with. But yeah, that. What do you guys think about that relationship? I don't even know if that's even what that is with Rebecca and the pilot. The
Well,
Dutch
initially
guy.
it
The
wasn't,
beginning of
but I think
something.
they both left it as this is something so good, and I don't want to ruin the moment that they had
Well, they
Well,
didn't
and
even
together
exchange
because
names.
they knew that they were away from each other, right? It would have turned into a long distance thing.
He represents everything that Rupert wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, she puts on hand-me-down clothes when he gets in her home. They eat like a simple but delicious meal. They don't have sex, do they?
No,
No.
they do
So
not.
like all
Nope.
these things that like it's the opposite of Rupert. He
He's
lives
the
more
anti-Rupert.
a simple life. So
Yeah.
I think that's something, and the whole kid thing too. So
Well,
And can I just say that I love that it didn't end in a sex thing?
yeah,
Because I feel like that was just such a natural, open thing to where it didn't need to end in that. Like it was
still romantic.
something that was it was romantic, and it was
It
something
was
that was good
sexy.
for those two characters.
so keeping with them and also touching on Sam and I think it was Katie,
Oh, his
Rebecca's
like chef.
mother's psychic.
Oh,
So she said a number of things that we saw come to pass over the course of the season. The Green Matchbook, Shite and Knighting Armor, and she mentioned that I think she said you will become a mother, you will be a mother or something like that.
Right.
And it was kind of like, for me, it was like, so are she and Sam going to get back together? Because I was curious about that, especially after Sam's father had been seen and had met everybody. I'm like, okay, that's one thing, but the pilot has a daughter, and it's like, well, perhaps this is her final thing of like, so this relationship with the pilot will move forward, and she will become stepmom to this little girl.
I hated Rebecca and Sam together. And I'm glad they didn't pursue it much further, because I do think that's one of those things. If the roles had been reversed and it was a male manager of like a women's team, it would never have happened. And it's just inappropriate relationships with the power differential. So I was just like, oh, let's not go much forward with it. And they nipped it in the bud pretty quickly.
Yeah, they did. And I think even from I think it was supposed to feel that way too, Steph. I don't think it was supposed to be like, oh, this is something long. To me, I always read it as she always kind of knew it wasn't appropriate.
Right.
And that's why she called off. Because Rebecca, I mean, she's got too much gosh, I want to say grooming, and that just sounds wrong in this context. But she's just been brought up so properly that she's going to do what's appropriate, and so I was glad as well that they called it off, and I didn't want them to ever go back, even though, I mean, Rebecca's great and Sam's great. I agree. The power dynamic there is just
the
weird.
power dynamic. It did come to play for me, and I was also wondering if at some point, especially after Sam Richardson's character, the really obnoxious Nigerian guy, came
Edwin Akufu.
Thank you, Akufu.
Akufu.
After he came into play, I was like, is Sam A going to leave Richmond, or B just going to quit the team altogether to give this a shot? Was something that came through my mind.
Oh yeah, well, it made you think that,
yeah,
like a good majority of the time. And then can we just talk about that scene when Akufu comes back and he's like, I want to make the ultimate league, and he has like all the big like power players of football in England.
The big rich white men.
Yes. Okay, I loved that scene though. Like I thought that was like amazing how Rebecca was like, you're all children, and like then like all of a sudden like she totally tells them off, and she's just like, no, we're not doing this. This is ridiculous. And then like, what happened? Like, did Akufu just like go crazy and throw food at everybody? Because we didn't see that.
100%.
Yeah,
and then
he's a spoiled child.
No, he probably had his assistant guy that he has give everybody high fives and shake their hands, throw the food at him.
Yes, but that whole scene was just like, it was just like bizarre, but also like, okay, awesome. And I also loved how Rebecca pushed Rupert away.
Yeah, how Rupert tried
No.
to kiss her, and she's like, "What the
Immediate-
Rupert's gonna
no.
Rupert.
She's
man?
like, what?
Done with that.
No.
And it wasn't even like, yeah, like she was like, no, this is like, did you really think there was something here? Like, it wasn't even like she was really, I don't think she was really entertaining the idea. I think she was like seriously appalled that he was even going to try to kiss her.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was really proud of Nathan Shelley.
Oh, we gotta talk about Nathan.
Let's talk Nathan.
Nathan.
Mm.
Oh man.
So
I
looking at
did
character
not-
arcs.
Want him to have a redemption arc.
Me
Oh, I
neither.
absolutely did.
yeah.
No.
I absolutely wanted it, and I thought they did it perfectly.
I did
I like
not.
the way they did it. I think that the fact that it wasn't Ted who came to him, but
Yes.
Beard,
The
I think
Beard.
that
Yes.
made it that much better. And then hearing
Yep.
Beard's backstory, because you've
Mhm.
got all these other
Yeah.
mysteries going around about Beard, like, you know, the David Bowie makeup and the glam makeup. You're just like, okay.
That
Beard is
whole
not-
episode with Beard having the night like to himself,
No.
that was the most bizarre episode.
Yes.
Well, he
So out
directed
there.
that episode.
Did he?
He directed one episode each season, I think, and he directed in first season The Night on his own. In the
Mhm.
second season, it was I can't remember what was in second season, but in third season it was Amsterdam.
Okay. But I think that, you know, if there was going to be a redemption arc, and I wasn't sure that it was going to go that way, the fact that it did happen and that it was Beard who was the instigator. I'm sorry, after the team went to go talk to Nathan and go, dude, what are you doing here? The fact that it was Beard who went to him and said, you know, it had that, just shows up at his doorstep. And I love Nathan's reaction, like, what is about to happen here?
Yeah,
He's like, I'm
he
about
thought
to
he
be
was going to get
murdered.
killed.
Straight up.
And Beard's just a very calm and quiet explanation of how he came to know Ted and what Ted did for him, and then what he did to Ted after that. But Ted still, you know, was his best friend and just was like,
and
no,
forgave
we're good
him.
here.
Yeah.
And Ted's entire thing about making, you know, not being there to win games, but to make people the better versions of themselves was exemplified through Beard's act of going, you know,
Yep.
10 o'clock Monday and
Yep.
just walking, you know, and then moving into headbutt him. I'm like, is he really going to headbutt him? And there's kind of like little soft tap. I'm like, okay, here we are.
I loved that scene, and I loved the instigation of that scene when Ted is showing Beard the video footage of how Nathan had to hide under the desk for hours waiting for everybody to
Oh my
leave.
gosh, yeah.
And then the powerful moment when Ted says, wouldn't it be awful if all of us were judged by our most awful moment or something along those lines?
Yeah.
And that's when Beard's like, because Ted was okay with bringing Nate back. Like, he was fine. He understood he made bad choices. He forgave him. Everybody deserves a second chance. It was Beard that was holding it up. She's like, if you let that Judas back in here. And I also really loved in that moment when they're having that heartfelt moment and Nate says, it's a lot like Les Mis. And he says, yes, our story shares a lot of similarities with the musical Les Mis.
Well, and also like you could see throughout
Except it was meth.
Oh
Well,
my gosh.
Sure, but I mean the principles, like basic story, he gets out of prison,
As
steals
soon
his
as
truck.
he says meth, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But no, the whole time when Nathan Shelley was the manager for the other team, West Ham, thank you. The name escaped me. And any time there was like any, especially in the beginning, whenever there were like reporters asking questions to Ted or even anybody from AFC Richmond, like they and especially Ted though, like he was very like he was very professional. Like he kept it professional the entire time. And there was even that moment where his son Henry was visiting in town. And what did he want to do on his last night there or whatever? He wanted to go to a football match and West Ham was playing. And they went and they wore like West Ham, like his son wore a West Ham jersey and was like, and they were cheering and just like the whole way that they acted and that he acted towards West Ham and everything. Like it was so respectful. And like, it was just kind of, honestly, it was kind of unexpected a little bit because here is this like golden opportunity. Here's this guy who totally snubbed you and also like told the press some really personal, deep things about what you've been going through and betrayed your trust. And here he is, you know, just trying to be like respectful AF, and everybody else around him is like, no, we hate Nathan. So I don't know. It just really shows how true to character that they kept with Ted.
It's very Ted.
And did you guys start to tear up when they all pulled out the Believe pieces of the Believe
Oh
poster?
my gosh. I could not. Oh, I could. Yeah, that was amazing. And because they kept the pieces with themselves the whole time.
The whole time. Yeah, I didn't want the redemption arc with Nathan, but I very much felt it would not be Ted Lasso if there wasn't one. And I did like the way he came back as the assistant to the Kit boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I did like that they wrapped up the series with the Diamond Dogs reunion, and that Roy Kent
and they
is
included
the one
him. Yes.
Watching Roy make that question of like, can I be a diamond dog? And you're just like,
I love that moment.
Roy.
Because I think even
Studs.
earlier in that same episode, they're like, have a Diamond Dog meeting, and they're like, Roy, and he's like, no.
Nope.
He's like, nope.
I'm out.
Yeah, he says something. I want to talk about how I'm feeling. They're like, you want to join the Diamond Dogs? And you've got even like Trent Krim standing there.
Yes, I saw that too.
And he's like, nope. Yeah, and then later when he says it was awesome, and that just showed the growth from Roy throughout the series and how his character had evolved and changed.
How do you know if a girl likes you?
It was so tender. I loved it.
And did you realize when he's hanging up the picture at the end when he becomes manager, the pictures of the boobies was the ones his niece drew in like preschool or her school art show.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a throwback because Ted goes in first season and uses black tape to cover up all the pornographic images like in the lockers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's like a cute throwback to both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I know. Watching the finale, and seeing all the different callbacks and everything, it like seriously makes me like I want to go back to season 1 and press play.
My brother is watching the series, like the season 1 right now. We were talking the other day, and he's like, he was watching it for the first time. He's like, yeah, we finally started watching it. He's like, we've gotten 4 episodes in, and I'm like, and he kind of left me hanging for a minute. He like made me feel like he was not going to like it, and then I was going to have to punch him in the face. But fortunately, he was like, we love it. And then he started saying, I'm not sure about Jamie Tart. I don't really like that character very much. And he's like, and Roy Kent's really close off. I'm like, well,
yep.
I'm excited for you to watch it.
Watching the progressions of Jamie, Roy, and even Nate. I mean, getting to see what it was that made Nate the way he was and his relationship with his father.
Yeah.
And that made him so mousy and unsure of himself because he was just looking for approval from his father that he never felt that he got. And then having that, when after he left West Ham and he's just crashing at his parents' place because the paparazzi and all the news folks are at his place, and he finds his violin and starts playing, just the scene of him playing and then watching the pullback of his father standing in the doorway, watching it and just smiling and just seeing his kid again. And then, the shock and then the conversation that they have of, why he drove him the way that he did and why Nathan was so, always uptight and unsure of anything he did because he was just, nothing was ever good enough as far as he was concerned from his father. And his father saying, admitting, maybe I put far too much pressure on you to have what I didn't. And I'm like, that's believable. And
yep.
I know you didn't want the arc of Nate finding that redemption, but I think that was one of the steps that he needed to kind of get him moving again.
Yeah.
Because while he was, allegedly great by Derek's definition at the restaurant, like, well, I have to fire you or else Jane's going to report some, or not Jane.
Jade.
Thank you.
Jade.
He's going to report all these other things, so you're fired. I'm like, well, sorry, Nate. You had something that looked like it was keeping you afloat that you enjoyed, and somebody just pulled that from under you. Unlike him sabotaging himself at AFC Richmond.
I totally thought that. Oh shoot! what's his name? Rupert was gonna try to take Jade.
Yeah.
Oh, but
I
that's
didn't think so. There wouldn't be a Rupert
But it
move. I think that Rupert
immediately
was like,
took-
she's not good enough for you. That's why he kept trying to set him up with all those supermodels.
Yeah.
That's
get
a
him to
character
cheat.
that changed too, in my opinion, because like she's such a she's kind of a little bee in the first 2 seasons,
She's
and then
uptight.
she is a great girlfriend and very supportive and very kind. And I think the interaction she actually had with Rupert and a couple other people was showing how she isn't going to deal with people's crap, like Rupert's crap. Like she could see through his sliminess and didn't give him what he wanted from what he likes to get from people, which is the power and the prestige. So yes, Jade ended up being a great girlfriend, and I thought she was such a little brat.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
And I feel like we need to talk about Keeley a little bit too. Because remind me, because I cannot remember when we are first introduced her, and Robert, you probably remember the most since you just watched season 1. But
No pressure there. Wow.
she was just Jamie's girlfriend, right? Was she even working at Richmond yet?
Her whole thing
No.
was she was famous for almost being famous.
Yeah.
She was the Paris Hilton
Okay.
of the show at first,
That's right.
because she'd done some commercial work, which we saw through every hotel
And-
that
and
everybody
models.
ever
Yes.
stayed in,
And I love that.
yes.
I love
Oh,
that
yeah.
so much.
And modeling and stuff.
and modeling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jack of
And
all.
so I feel like with Keeley, like I'll be honest, I didn't in the beginning, like I kind of felt like she was a little annoying, but she again was another one of those characters that as you got to know her and you saw more interactions with her, you're like, okay, she's actually really cool. And like seeing even like her friendship with Rebecca evolve and how close those two became, like I loved their scenes together. Like I thought it was just amazing to see that the dynamic between these two women just loving and supporting each other like wholeheartedly. And even so much so that when when it came time for, because Keeley was PR for the team for a while, and then she was able to go off and do her own thing, that Rebecca was like, yep, go do it. Like, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
I don't want you to leave, but this is what you need to do. And like, and even when that fell through and she needed, she was gonna, like, I don't know if she was gonna quit or what, but she just didn't really know what she was gonna do. And again, Rebecca was like, let me help you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing too, because she could, and she saw the potential in Keeley and how awesome of a boss she is with her PR, her public relations, and her skills and everything. Like, she wanted to help her succeed too.
But not Shandy. Never Shandy.
Oh my
No.
God, Andy.
I don't know. Yeah, Shandy was the worst. I loved Keeley in season 3 so much. I loved her with Roy. Like their relationship was really great
I loved
too.
it. Loved them.
And I loved when Roy took a step back, because I thought that was the stupidest thing he could ever do, but he did what he felt like he needed to do. But I loved seeing what Keeley had to go through to get this business off the ground, and the crap she had to go through, and the way Jack treated her, because that was a bad relationship from the beginning.
So
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Jack just wanted to buy her love the whole time, and
when it didn't fit her agenda, like
right. And then when Keeley wasn't going to apologize for a private video that she sent to her boyfriend at the time, saying, no, I don't regret doing it. It was, it was fine. And Jack not understanding that and wanting her to apologize. Like, it was really, like, it sucks. Like, it is such a double standard. If one of the football players on the team had done that same kind of video, it would have been like, well, that's boys being boys.
Yep.
And a blip, and she does it anyway. I love Keeley's. Go ahead.
I really like that McAdoo. I like that scene where McAdoo was like, we need to delete all these pictures, because it is something, it's part of art that emulates real life, because this does happen to people. This does happen where things surface up because you're sharing private things with someone you trust at the time, and then that dynamic changes. So
I loved that scene so much, because if you remember back to 2016, when certain things came out about a certain presidential candidate, and a lot of the things that you heard was, well, it's just locker room talk. It's just what guys talk about in the locker room. Well, here Ted Lasso gives us a better example of how guys should be talking in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
They showed such non-toxic masculinity. And they grew so much as a team together. And like, you still had that one guy who, like, in Amsterdam was like, we need to go to a sex show.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that's and I don't think that was seen as like a negative, but just as like, yeah, that's so.
Well, they're young.
it
They're
feels like a
young
good
single
dynamic
guys.
of different
bingo.
human beings.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's great. We love it.
That
So-
I loved that they sat in the lobby for so long, to the point where they ended up doing nothing because they couldn't decide, because that is like hanging out with a group of friends all the time. So you get together, okay, so what are we going to
What
do?
should we do?
I don't know. What do you guys want to do?
I don't
know.
want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
was
let's
great.
look at another angle of that. Of when McAdoo was saying we need to delete all of these things, and then Colin, I think it was,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, maybe not. And his arc that we got to see a little bit of with Trent discovering that he was gay and keeping his secret, and then the two of them sharing an evening out and having a conversation, and Colin becoming more comfortable, a little more comfortable in his own skin, and then the reveal that he was gay when everybody thought it was McAdoo, when McAdoo jumps in the stands to punch the guy
Right.
and gets red carded, and Colin fighting, the inner fight with him, like, do I say that it wasn't him and why he did it, and Trent just standing there very quietly observing, just watching the whole thing, like, I know what's going on in your head. And you can see the whole thing, him just working through this of like, he's got to do it for himself. If he doesn't do it, I would have been interested to see how he would have responded to him. But the fact that when he did, come out and the team's like, okay, you're still our teammate.
Yeah.
And
and try to tell me Jamie Tartt isn't a bi god. Like, bye.
Yeah,
He's a god.
got it. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then the relationship between Colin and McAdoo, how tense that was, until they finally came to a head and was like, okay, well, why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure how you would react. And McAdoo's response of, oh, okay, and the fact that you can't keep a secret. Okay, that's true.
Yeah.
Let's play video games.
And then I love
that.
McAdoo responds like every heterosexual male ever. That's so, do you, like, asking the questions that, like, but I loved in that episode Ted's response. The I do care speech was so powerful.
Yeah.
It was
because that we say that all the time. Oh, I don't care. He wanted to make sure that he understood, like, no, we got your back. We care.
Exactly.
We're here for you. And then I loved Roy Kent at the end of that with the press conference. And when they ask him about what happened, and he gives the whole story about, the guy that he made fun of and said, hey, statistically speaking, I could be the father of your wife's baby and whatever. And like he said, basically, none of us know what's going on in other people's lives. And so it's not our place to judge. So it's none of your best business. He didn't say none of your business, but he added some other words in there. But I love that, because that was the culture that has been created on the team of, we've got each other's backs. We care. We're not going to judge.
When Sam's restaurant got vandalized, I loved at the end where the teammates showed up to help him take care of it. It was just such little wholesome elements of like having a team, but having like a team.
Well, it's the Richmond way.
It's the Richmond way, exactly. And it's like Trent said toward the end of season 3, when he comes running in, he's like, it's going to work, Ted. It's going to work. You're not changing up mid-season. You've been doing this over the last 3 years with little bits and pieces here and there, creating this culture of caring and genuine trust. It's going to work. I love that scene. And I love when Beard's like, he's such a dork. Yeah,
but he's our
dork.
One of my favorite things they continued on, like jokes, is calling Zero Van Dam throughout the 3rd season.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's
Zorro? Zorro.
I don't hear the difference. Well, then when he gets the black mask and he says he wants to be Zorro.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Zorro.
Yep.
Zorro?
Yeah,
Oh my
No,
gosh.
Zorro.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Oh, the players were so fun
Mm-hmm.
and created such such a fun atmosphere. It added a lot to the story.
Well, and every time they like created their own little musical numbers and dances and stuff, like who does that? You know what I mean? Like I loved that, especially, as like a fun little thank you
Yeah.
/ goodbye for Ted. That they
It
did
fit so
they
well.
did that song. Like I was like laughing and I think maybe crying at the same time because it was just so fun.
It's so ridiculous. There was the other part of it. Just like, are they doing? Oh, they're doing the Sound of Music.
Sound of
Okay, well,
Music.
let's go.
Yeah. And speaking of thruples, Danny Rojas at the end.
Oh
There we
my
go.
gosh.
Uh-huh.
Jenny,
That makes so much sense.
football is life.
Oh my gosh. I loved him and Van Damme, speaking of Van Damme, because they were going to play each other in the national games.
Yes, and he was
And,
like scared of it.
Yeah, you are now my enemy. And he broke his nose.
Uh-huh.
In the plane where he's like, "Do you want some chips?" and he just crushes them.
And Van
then
Damme's
when-
head was like, okay.
And then when he comes back, and they're just, it's like everything's back to normal. They're not
Like,
enemies
hey!
anymore. It's and Van Damme's like,
He's so
not
confused
sure.
And the fact that
scared.
they just named one of the characters Bumbercatch,
yes,
like it's just such like silly humor.
yeah. There was, and that's what makes it so great. Is there are the little silly jokes throughout the whole thing,
Mhm.
and that you can pick up on, or you might miss some of them, but they're all there. They're funny, but then it's still heartfelt and it's genuine and it's sincere. It's I don't know. It's hard to think of another show that's like Ted Lasso.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't
feel
think
like
There
feel like
is, and I
Well,
honestly
I-
think this is some of the best TV we've
We've
gotten
gotten.
in years.
well,
if
I
ever.
was gonna say I think probably the most close. I can't
The
think
most
of the word.
closest.
The
Yeah,
most closest.
Mostest closest.
Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. It would be Shrinking, like I said earlier, because it's very similar humor in a way, and it's it's a dramedy, just like I feel like Ted Lasso is categorized, and there's a lot of F words too, and and also the commonality with Brett Goldstein because he helps write that one too, but also I feel like it's a different enough story though that it's not Ted Lasso, but it has very like similar humor, and it's just also very like cleverly written, that I feel like if you are looking for a show that's kind of like Ted Lasso, I would recommend Shrinking.
But with less football.
Definitely
A lot less football. A lot less
And-
football. But it has Harrison Ford, so
It
And
does have football in it, though.
both shows star a guy named Jason and a last name that starts with an S.
that is true.
Well,
That is true.
So another commonality there.
One thing with Ted Lasso, just going outside of the show for a second, one of the people that I work with day in and day out is from Scotland, and I asked him, so do you watch Ted Lasso? And he was like, yes, as a soccer fan, because he is a diehard soccer fan, played amateur league for a while, and my thought was, so how does it, how do you feel about it? He's like, the only problem that he had with it was it's hard to make. He said, why is it so difficult to make a soccer game on television look like a football game look like a football game? And I think that with a lot of sports media, sports in pop culture media rather, sometimes it's hard to get the camera angles and everything. Like in a movie, it's a little better because you have the cameras that can capture the motion from the angles, because they'll go to different stadiums, what have you. But try to get player level action. I could see where, after you mentioned that to me, I could see where it was, okay, I can see where this does not look like an actual soccer match per se, but it was never about the soccer. And he says that outside of that, loved the show, loved everything. He also, thanks to the show, explained to me before they did it for Ted how the Premier League, the Championship League, and all the other leagues work, and then
Oh yeah.
the other divisions below
makes
that.
no
and then
sense.
It's ridiculous. But I also came to understand how it is that people become so fanatical about it, because it starts when they're 6, 7. Like Marley was saying that she played when she was younger, but you start off with like a church league or a pub league, and you can go up to like an amateur league, and you can be in a league that is like one level removed from the championship league, and it's like you're part of this whole culture that is international. It has so many different levels and divisions. It's like, how do you keep track of this? So Ted's confusion of like, so let me get this straight. If we lose this match, we go to the Champions League. But if we win, we could be in the Premier League. But if this happens, we're relegated to this league. I'm like, I understand your confusion, Ted. I am right there
Yeah.
with you.
But in the last season, he finally understands offsides.
He did, and that was so
That was
wonderful.
a
Yes.
great moment.
And it was lovely just to watch Beard and Roy look at him like, what? Who are you, and what have you done with Ted?
Yeah.
That confusion, and he just
Well, because he's so casual about it. He's like, oh, they're going to call that back because he was offsides.
what?
Guy finally understands the game.
Right
leaves
as
the
he's
game.
leaving.
Oh my goodness. Oh, it's just such a good show. Like I seriously try to recommend it to everyone that I know. And even the people that I know that don't like the swears and some of the crassness, but again, they start playing, or not playing, they start watching the show and they're like, okay, this is fine. I like this show enough that I don't really mind that
Mhm.
the profanity and stuff in it. And so like it's like what Steph said, it's effing wholesome. That's what it is. It's just a great show overall.
I
Agree to
agree.
agree.
Yeah. I am. Some shows leave you very sad with how they do the finale and leave you wanting more or like a better conclusion. And I was very satisfied with how they ended things. And while I would love more, I understand and accept that there will not be, and I'm happy with how they concluded it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
wrapped up every little thing. I feel like not every little thing, but like
The
all
major
the
thing.
major points. And again, as we mentioned, like they had a lot of really fun callbacks, even
And
subtle ones. That the last episode I feel like was one of the most satisfying series finales that I've seen for any series in a long time.
no, agreed. And did you catch going to callbacks? Beard's pants.
Yes, at his wedding. I noticed
His
that too.
wedding?
The stripy pants. Yep,
Mhm.
I noticed that. And the couple, the
Mhm.
house that he went to, that the woman
They were there.
and the guy came in and was like scared him off, the big guy, and he chases him around all
Oh,
night. Yeah, they were at the wedding too.
Yep.
I just love that airplane scene where he's
I got a plan.
all of a sudden
Are you gonna go to the
Throwback in
hospital with your
pain.
friend?
No, he's good.
Right.
what a
That
Oh.
that scene, the whole airplane scene, the airport scene, is such a great bookend to the beginning of the series, because at the beginning it starts with them saying, "Is this nuts?" And he says that on the plane to Beard as well. "Is this nuts? I mean, we almost won the whole dang thing. We could go back next year and maybe win the whole thing." And then also when he gets off the plane and the kid's like, "Hey, aren't you Ted Lasso?" And like, "Yeah, you're a real," and basically
Good
it was a joke. And then in this, it's the same kind of thing. "Hey, aren't you Ted Lasso?" And it was more of a respect thing. And there was a lot of really cool stuff.
Too?
I think it is.
Really?
Huh.
I thought
Huh.
it was.
Yeah. I think it is.
I need to go back and look at this.
But yeah, it was cool to see that. I loved how they wrapped up so many of the characters and their stories as well. I loved Rebecca wanting to run the team into the ground to, instead of selling the whole thing, she only sold off 49%, but she sold it to the fans.
Yeah.
And so the fans own it. And like,
and May had like
That fat stack.
yep.
I loved that.
I loved the pub friends, and they're like, "What are we gonna do now?" And she's like, "Make a connection and settle down." And they're like, Nah.
Oh my.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah. Continue, Jake.
no, I was just I wasn't going to say anything, Steph. I'll let you go.
I know. I don't know if there's much else. I think we all came to the same conclusion.
Well,
Ted Lasso. Thumbs
maybe
up.
we could go around and ask what your favorite Tedism is. Your favorite lesson that Ted taught or experience or saying.
Two. I've got two actually. One is the scene in the pub with Rebecca, Rupert, and Bex, where he challenges Rupert to darts, and everybody's like, "That's a horrible idea. Don't do this." And he's playing right-handed, and then when they agree to the terms, he's like, "Oh, I forgot I'm left-handed," and just nailing shots. And he talks about being underestimated his entire life, and the look on Rupert's face as he realizes he's not the most powerful man in the room. He's getting shot down by some Yank from the middle of nowhere who knows nothing about football. And it's just Ted just like, yeah, they underestimate me because my father told me that there's two kinds of people: the ones who are curious and the ones who are judgmental. In that conversation, so that would be one. And I think that the overall, it was never about me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just thought of one. It's like it just goes back to all of those scenes with the Diamond Dogs and how basically like all this group of men who are probably not really used to talking openly about their feelings and their struggles and what they're going through. And here they created a safe space for all of them to be able to do that, a judgment-free zone, and just to be able to just like talk it out. And whether it was just to share and not necessarily seek advice, but just an opportunity to be like, hey, I'm going through this thing. Just wanted you to know. And and I think the Tedism that kind of goes with that is like talking about like how like vulnerability is not weakness, because it's not. It's okay to be vulnerable and to talk about your feelings, and even with your friends and people that you don't know super well. So I always really liked those scenes a lot.
I would say be a goldfish.
Oh, yes.
I tend to just get stuck in my own head a lot and just kind of go over things that have happened in the past or decisions that were made, and be a goldfish and just trying to reset and just forget about those things and moving forward and doing better going forward.
I'm going to break the rules a little bit and do a Jamie Tartism where it's just poop. Let it flow.
Oh my gosh.
But it's just so great. Like, just let it go. It's not going to help you.
Like the sewers.
It's just poop. I want my kids to say poop like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that now with me and my husband Jason. Like whenever we're talking about something that we're upset about or something, we're like, it's just poopy. It's poopy.
Yeah. There's so many, and you guys have talked about a lot of good ones. I really love the scene in the pub as well with the dart game. I think that's such a powerful scene. But I really do love the scene where he's talking with Trent about his vision for the team and how he thinks about these players and how sincere and open he is. It's not about the wins and losses. It's about helping these guys develop, and seeing that play out over the next 2.5 seasons. At that point, it was really cool. And then a funny one, I love when he's getting the tour from Rebecca for the first time, and she talks about how some people think that it may even be haunted because it was an old World War I hospital. And he says, ooh, spooky. And she said, oh, do you believe in ghosts? He said, yeah, I do. But I think it's more important that they believe in themselves because he's all about belief.
Yes. I love that. I love that too.
Right.
So many awesome tender moments from that show. It's hard to list every single one because every time Ted opens his mouth, I feel like there's something.
Well, and proof that you can make a really fantastic show without being a dick. Like all of their jokes, none of it's punching down.
Yeah.
It's all just, creating happiness and joy and community. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so hard because we've been talking for over an hour now, and there's still so much. And I'm thinking, like, we didn't talk about mental health at all, and how it totally was open and honest about that and dealing with mental health. We didn't talk. I mean, there's just so much, goodness
just
in
the
it.
overall the 3 seasons of Lasso as opposed to just the finale episode.
Yeah, we should have niched down.
Sorry,
but we did.
Our
But we
hubris
didn't.
was too big.
Because it was a great show.
It was indeed.
Well, thank everyone. You guys,
Thanks, everyone.
do it now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, or whenever you listen to this. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Ted Lasso. You can check out our Discord. Discord.com/ageofgeek.
Nope.
Discord.ageofgeek.com.
There we go. We would love for you to check out our sister podcasts, Movies That Make Us, Cutscenes and Cupcakes, Multiplane Podcast. Am I missing any right now? Got the big 3. And we'll be back next week with some more great content. So thank you guys and have a lovely night. And be a goldfish.
Bye.
And believe.
Believe in yourself.
This has been an Age of Geek media production.